Welcome back to Friday's weekly recap video, where we dive in and have a look at how the cryptocurrency market has played out over the weekend. And most importantly here, the stock market still ripping to the upside, setting new highs here on the S&P 500, seeing the Nasdaq push higher in the last 24 hours, setting new highs again. And now finally starting to see the Dow Jones catch up here, pushing towards its old all-time high. And since Tuesday's video here, still seeing the dollar fall an additional 3%, giving us the perfect storm of macro conditions here, seeing that money is flowing out of the US dollar into the stock market and now into the cryptocurrency market, seeing Bitcoin come all the way up to the top of its B wave here and falling short of its old all-time high set back in late May by just over 1%. And if we jump in and have a look at our example here that we've been referencing, we can see that we are in those very last stages of the corrective structure here, like you can see on the right side, where Bitcoin has come up to the top of its B wave like it did back in November last year, and now what we are waiting for is that final push out, Bitcoin to break to a new all-time high. So we're going to jump into all of that today and more and have a look at what we're seeing on the charts here. And most importantly, we're going to have a look at the XRP price chart and see how things are playing out for XRP and how much longer is left until potentially we can start to see some expansion here. So let's jump into it. So the first thing I want to jump into here is actually Tuesday's video. We spoke about what we wanted to see on Bitcoin and XRP, which could lead XRP to break to the upside here. So I just want to quickly replay this 30-second clip and just show you guys what we spoke about on Tuesday and how that's all playing out so far. Similar fashion, and that what we are waiting for next is XRP to pull back, hold the bottom of that second wave, and then push to the top of the range boundary here. And I think that all of this happens if we do see the conditions met here on Bitcoin. And what I'm starting to see here on Bitcoin is the fact that we are most likely going to have a shallow correction here, and that we may not see Bitcoin pull back that deep here. As you can see, we have been grinding to the upside here, and the longer I see us grind sideways here and actually hold support at these levels, the more it's pointing to a shallow pullback here for Bitcoin before eventually shooting back to those old all-time highs, or even potentially the top of Bitcoin's B wave that we've been tracking here on the channel. And I think if that is the situation and Bitcoin is to play out like that, that would then allow XRP to find support in similar regions here and actually have the ability to expand and push to the upside as we start to see Bitcoin perform the same way. So as you can see, we were sitting in roughly this moment here when we made Tuesday's video, expecting Bitcoin to perform a bit of a shallow pullback here and then shoot back to that old all-time high set back in January at 109,000, and then potentially even shoot a bit higher to the top of that B wave at 110,000, which Bitcoin ended up doing throughout the week. And during that whole time, when we see Bitcoin shoot to the upside, which we've taken here from our example, as we can see on the right side, once Bitcoin did come back for its support in early October last year, we did see it shoot back to its old all-time high, which was that blue line, and then eventually the top of its B wave, which if we have a look at our structure on the left here and how that's playing out, we have performed quite similar yet again, shooting back to those same ranges and now finding resistance at the exact same level we found resistance back in late October last year, before things could get exciting and actually shoot to the upside. So everything for Bitcoin is still playing out how we expected here, and I think that the next move for Bitcoin is one final pullback in the next 24 hours here, and then we should see it shoot above 112,000 and into a new all-time high, the same way things played out on the right here. And I'm sure there will be a news catalyst that comes in at this final moment, which gives Bitcoin the boost it needs to push up into a new all-time high. And if you were around in November last year, you'll notice that in this moment right here, once Bitcoin had broken out into an all-time high and then was shooting to the upside, was actually when we've seen XRP get a bit of a push. And what you can see is that on the right side here is XRP from November last year, before it eventually shot to the upside and went for that parabolic expansion. And what you'll see is that in this time zone right here was that 6th of November when Bitcoin actually shot to the upside and broke out, and that XRP structure, the way it was playing out right then, is quite similar to the way it's playing out on the left side here in today's price action. And what you can see is that XRP also is in those final stages. If we were to map out things, how they play out on the left here in this bit of choppy price action, you can see we are in those final stages of the choppy price action here for XRP before it can eventually complete that fifth wave, shoot back to that $2.60 region and even higher, the same way XRP did on the right side here, where it did eventually shoot up in that fifth wave here back above the range highs and then consolidate, which if we have a look at today's price, that would be XRP shooting up above $2.60 and then eventually consolidating in that region. And I think that all happens when we see Bitcoin actually break out here into a new all-time high, the same way it played out back in November on the right side here. So as far as price action goes, everything is tracking along to what we spoke about in Monday and Tuesday's Bitcoin and XRP videos, and now we are in those final stages and we still have all the perfect macro conditions we want to see. Stock market still pushing higher, S&P, Nasdaq still pushing higher. Dow Jones actually catching up to the S&P and the Nasdaq this week, pushing towards that old all-time high. And again, the dollar still selling off. So we're starting to see them dollars rotate into the stock market, into the crypto market, and now we are essentially just in that waiting room now before Bitcoin can pull that next move and rip to the upside. And I think when Bitcoin does move to the upside here and cleans that all-time high is when we should start to see these final moments here for XRP before we can actually start to see the expansion here and that move all the way up to that $2.60 region that we're looking for. And if you've been paying attention, you'll probably see that there are a lot of news narratives out there right now that could lead XRP to actually push to the upside, and that would be Ripple actually acquiring a banking license here and coming out with some news to follow up on that they're announcing something to do with XRP and this banking license. Or I think what's most likely is that on the 9th of July here, we see more clarity around Trump's tariffs and what he's going to do, especially when it comes to that big, beautiful bill he's trying to push through. And that once these two things have a little bit more clarity around them and we know what's going on, that should lead Bitcoin to actually push out from these levels here, shoot into those new all-time high regions. And in this time here, when Bitcoin consolidates and goes for that push out of that consolidation range is when we should start to see XRP break to the upside. And I think in that moment, we'll see XRP actually push up to these $2.60 levels, consolidate in those regions. Same way things played out back in early November last year when we did see XRP pull that massive move, which actually resulted in XRP shooting up over 470% in the space of just 3 weeks. And that the structures that played out down here in that time zone is this zone here on the right side, and I'm seeing similar structures play out on today's price chart, signaling to me that we are in these final stages here before we should start to see XRP actually shoot to the upside like it did in early November here. And I think that all should line up with Bitcoin actually breaking out into a new all-time high here. So guys, we really are just in the waiting room now of the final stages before we can actually see Bitcoin break to the upside here. And I think that once we clear this zone here, which we've had marked for over a month now, that most exciting stage will end up being this black circle here. And that when we can actually see Bitcoin break out of its all-time high at about 112,000, like it's set back here on the left in late May, that when this moment ends up happening is when we should start to see excitement in this market. And right now we are really just sitting in the waiting room waiting for that to happen, and that we have every single macro condition we want to see in order for something like that to happen. It's just a matter of being patient and waiting for it to happen. Now we really couldn't ask for better economic and macro conditions here to see Bitcoin play out the same way it did in early November last year. And that now that we are coming to an end of the blue circle stage here, and we have started to see rejection of that B wave, and that Bitcoin has made it back to the top of this range now, that what we're all waiting for now is for Bitcoin to just shoot to a new all-time high and then get the exciting period of this market started. And that once we do see Bitcoin shoot into a new all-time high, we'll start to talk about what we expect from moments like that, how it's likely that at some point when Bitcoin does break out, it's highly likely we could even see a back test at this $112,000 region, similar to the way things performed on the right side here when once we did see that breakout, there was eventually that back test that came a few months later. However, in this moment right here that we can see on the right side, when Bitcoin actually did shoot up and then go into this corrective stage, was the most bullish time for the altcoins, and is when we've seen XRP rip over 470% in just the space of a couple of weeks. So until Monday, guys, have a good weekend. If we do see Bitcoin break into a new all-time high over the weekend, I'll make a follow-up video discussing what to expect next and what we're looking for here on the channel as far as not only Bitcoin goes but XRP. So if you're new here, feel free to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, it helps a lot. If you have any questions, comment them down below in the comment section. I'll see you guys back on Monday for the Bitcoin update video, and hopefully we see Bitcoin in new all-time highs here. Have a good weekend.